Maybe even better after the Cleveland Browns arrive on Thursday night. Luke Jones is live downtown for all things Ravens and a huge 21-14 win over the Steelers. The Ravens now the first place Baltimore Ravens. Can we say that, Luke? Is that fair enough to say?
They are. I mean, this division stinks, but the Ravens are right there with Pittsburgh tied. Ravens currently have the tiebreaker. Of course, these teams will see each other again week 16, but for right now, yeah, why not? First place Baltimore Ravens. Certainly not the most aesthetically pleasing game and plenty to pick apart to be concerned about, but have to be really, really impressed with the way the defense played in what was a 21-14 win.
All right, what do you want to do? You want to pick it apart first, or do you want to praise first? Let's start with the defense and the good news. Yeah. You know what? As much as Ozzie, Eric, Ortiz, Harbaugh, all the coaches have gotten banged around pretty good over the last month, and some of it, well within their purview, it really does make a big difference when C.J. Mosley plays. It really does make a big difference when Terrell Suggs plays. It really does make a big difference when Marshall Yanda plays. And and I would just say this on Ronnie Stanley, who did not have a very good day. He is their lottery pick for the year. They had as close to a full complement of players on Sunday, other than Doomerville, than they've had all year.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's what they had at the beginning of the season. Remember, really at the start of the year, Elvis Doomerville was the only one they were really missing. And, as far as Marshall Yanda being back for the offensive line, that's good. I'm not sure it showed up a whole lot on Sunday. I mean, the offense was a dumpster fire after the first quarter. Let's call a spade a spade.
Fair enough.
But, and because we said we're going to talk about the good things, this defense, even with some of their injuries, even with some of the imperfections that we certainly saw over the last few weeks, this defense has played at a really high level. I think that, and I've written about this, I've talked about this with you at a couple different points over the course of this season. In this town, there's such a longing for Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Terrell Suggs at age 25 and Haloti Ngata and Chris McAllister, and you think of all the all-time greats that have played on the defensive side of the ball for this team over the last 21 seasons.
Yeah, ran into McCrary and Saragusa on Sunday, right? I mean, just two guys that, if they were on this team right now, you call them two of the best players on this team, right?
Yeah, so there's there's a very high bar, and I get that. Hey, I've lived it. I've watched it, the entire existence of this franchise. But I think there's a thought that because a defense isn't the 2000 Ravens, and look, this defense isn't close to being the 2000 Ravens. It's not the 2006 Ravens. It's not the 2003 Ravens. It's not even the 2011 Ravens. But this is a good defense, and the numbers don't lie. Going into this one, even before what they were able to do for roughly 3.5 quarters against a banged-up Ben Roethlisberger, who was terrible, and a Pittsburgh offense that had 2 first downs entering the fourth quarter, this is a defense that's played well this year, and the numbers don't lie. The NFL is not what it was 15 years ago. You just don't shut down opposing offenses in the way that the Ravens were able to do for such a long time. So the standard around the league has changed. Certainly the standard here in Baltimore is high, and I get that, but at some point, I see so much visceral, so much criticism for the defense that frankly hasn't been deserved this year. It hasn't been perfect. It wasn't perfect on Sunday. I mean, they gave up a couple late drives. They're certainly playing some prevent defense, forcing Pittsburgh to go down the field and take up time, which, by the way, worked because they had an onside kick try with under a minute to go. So it wasn't as though, even if they recovered there, that they're definitely going to tie the game. But overall, this defense, because they haven't had Elvis Doomerville, and because they've had a Terrell Suggs who's age 34 and now basically playing with one arm, and because they haven't had C.J. Mosley the last couple of weeks, they deserve some credit because this team, the only reason it's 4-4 right now, as opposed to being even worse than what they are right now, is because their defense has played at a top 10 kind of level. Not perfect, it's not elite or special or historic, but it's certainly been playoff caliber on that side of the ball. And frankly, they're going to need to continue to play that kind of defense on that side of the ball because, this offense, I think it can get better, but right now it's not even close to being good enough. And take away a great play by Mike Wallace, which, certainly it counts, but take that away and this offense did next to nothing on Sunday. So that defense deserves a lot of credit, even if it was a banged up Roethlisberger. I joked that the Ravens defense looked like it was year 2000 and Roethlisberger looked like Mike Tomczak, so maybe it was appropriate. But
I was thinking touchdown Tommy Maddox or
yeah,
Tommy Maddox, as they like to
Jim
say.
Miller or Cordell Stewart, whoever you want to, bad Pittsburgh quarterbacks of the past. But, this defense deserves a lot of credit. And, considering they don't have that great pass rusher other than Suggs who can flash, and clearly it's not consistent like it once was with him, they deserve a lot of credit. They shut down the run completely. Le'Veon Bell was a non-factor on the ground. I mean, Pittsburgh, I don't even know why they were trying to run. They were so ineffective.
14 rushes, 32 yards for Le'Veon Bell. I mean, that won't happen a whole lot during the course of a season.
Right. So, and they needed their running game to work. So credit to the Ravens for shutting down the run. And the Ravens secondary, as maligned as it might be at times, and it's not perfect, even Ladarius Webb, who I've been critical of, played a really nice game back there. Just a nice collective effort from the secondary. The only real knock you could say is could have came away with a couple interceptions to maybe make this score a little more lopsided than it was.
Well, Webb had a hold of one, right? Weddle had one in his hands, right? I mean,
C.J.
Mosley had one, correct? I mean, this could have been a lot uglier than 21-0 at one point for as bad as the Ravens' offense was. We'll agree on that.
Absolutely. So, all things considered, if that's your biggest criticism of the defense, and look, John Harbaugh even acknowledged that they were conservative at the end, and Eric Weddle acknowledged that too, and, frankly, probably was smart to be more conservative as opposed to being aggressive and risking giving up a 75-yard touchdown in 20 seconds as opposed to making them march down the field. So, they'll look at that. They weren't perfect, but overall, you got to be really pleased with the way that defense has played, and overall, I think they deserve more credit than they've received this year.
Well, let's talk about the defense individually and players because, as much as I would say a McCrary or a Saragusa was there, or you would talk about Ray Lewis or Ed Reed or the guys in the Hall of Very Good, in order to be a good defense, you need playmakers to be out there and making plays. Let's start with Jernigan. We're certainly noticing him a lot in 2016, aren't we? I mean, he's around the ball, on the ball. I know he was the village goat, 2 weeks ago for trying to pick the ball up and run with it. I mean, it would have been a difference maker in the game against New York. But, he got one, fell on it. He's really rounded into a night. There was Brandon Williams and there was everyone else before. He's coming on. We're seeing and feeling him a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think with Timmy Jernigan, we've seen him flash in the past. I mean, I think everyone thinks back to, remember he had a sack in the playoff game against New England a couple years back, and we've seen him at times look really good. But then we see those stretches where he kind of disappears and he doesn't do as much. And, he had, 3 sacks in the first 4 games, I want to say. Just off the top of my head, maybe 3 in the first 3 it might have been. But clearly we saw him making more splashes early in the year, and we've seen him of late doing more of that as well. And had to like the humility and the self-deprecating humor that he had in the post-game locker room, being asked about the interception. He said, "All I was thinking was catching it and falling to the ground." I learned my lesson, and I thought, hey, I mean, at this point, the guy can't continue to beat himself up over what happened there. Talking about what happened.
Yeah, he was stand up in the swamps 2 weeks ago. I mean, he's not, he played at Florida. He's Florida State. He's not running from anything. I really like him. He's one of my favorite guys on the team for his enthusiasm, his energy, and now he's starting to make a difference. He's starting to become a plus guy, not just a guy, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's very accurate. I'm not ready to put him in the Pro Bowl conversation or anything like that, but he is proving to look more and more like an above-average player. And, this team needs that. They need, we've talked a lot the last couple of years about them just having a bunch of solid players and not enough guys that are making a bigger impact. And, we're starting to see him make more of an impact. We've seen it from Brandon Williams the last few years, but, the other guy, Michael Pierce. I mean, we've talked so much about the drafts of the last couple of years and draft picks not making as much of an impact as you'd like to see. And here's a rookie free agent who has come on and has done a really nice job for them. Had a tackle for a loss. We've seen him get some pressure on quarterbacks over his first half of his his rookie season. He's done a nice job. So it's this defensive line, this front seven hasn't gotten a lot of pressure off the edge. Their outside linebackers haven't been as impactful in that department as you'd like to see. Although Judon had a sack, covered sack on Sunday. But, there are their interior defensive line and their linebackers in coverage have done a really nice job, and it's a big reason why this defense has been as successful as it's been. I mean, they've been excellent against the run. The Isaiah Crowell run in the Cleveland game and having some issues against the Jets aside, no one's really run on them consistently. No one's gashed them completely. And for the most part, they've shut down the opposition's running game. And it gives you a great chance. When you're able to do that, it allows you to play, do some different things in the secondary. It gives you a little more confidence in that department. And then ultimately it makes the opposition kind of quit on the running game eventually. And it just makes the opposition more one-dimensional. And then you can focus on stopping the pass. So, this team, again, this defense, I don't think is as talented as some of the great Ravens defenses of the past, but the numbers don't lie, especially in this day and age where we talk about offense, we talk about points, we talk about the passing game. The Ravens have been a top 10, if not top 5 kind of defense all year long.
Luke Jones joining us here talking all things Ravens, a 21-14 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Roethlisberger 23 of 45 for 264 yards, including the aforementioned pick that fell in the arms of Timmy Jernigan with a couple other opportunities. Le'Veon Bell, 14 carries, 32 yards, just 36 yards on the ground for the Steelers on Sunday. And then, the receiving core, Rodgers had 6 for 103, including the 117-yarder. And Antonio Brown, 7 receptions, 85 yards. Nothing. We preach about Odell Beckham and don't let the ball get behind you. Don't let it go over your head. That didn't happen in this game. And to your point, you're talking about a defense that's improving. Part of that is just not giving up that gigantic play that they were victimized by in a couple of these games during the losing streak.
Yeah, and look at what they did over the first 3 quarters. Ben Roethlisberger entered the fourth quarter with 54 passing yards. 54. At that point, Antonio Brown had 2 catches for 9 yards. Again, people will point to the fourth quarter and say, the Ravens played the prevent defense. Well, you can do that when you're up 21-0. That's kind of the idea. That first touchdown drive that Pittsburgh had, Antonio Brown, 23-yard pass, double coverage. I know Eric Weddle was a little frustrated about that, but they made them drive 5 minutes to get that. When you're talking about not having a lot of time and you're down 3 touchdowns and you make a team go drive and take up 5 minutes to get their first touchdown, that's not the worst thing in the world. That's not the worst play in the world. The problem is if you give up a 55-yard touchdown and it's only a 3-play drive and it only takes 1:15 because you're leaving a lot of clock remaining to complete a comeback. So, again, this team did such a nice job. Was Roethlisberger on top of his game? I think it was clear he wasn't. There were some guys that were open. He missed some throws. There were certainly some opportunities.
Well, he's missed a couple of these games, right? From talking to the guys in Pittsburgh, this was really important for him to get on the field, win or lose, because this is another season where he wouldn't play against the Ravens at all, right?
Yeah. This last year we saw it. What was it? Week 4, the Thursday night game where Mike Vick played in his place and was just. Was terrible. They refused to throw the ball down the field against a secondary that we knew was not very good, especially in the first half of last season. So they wanted him on the field, but at some point you kind of ask the question, how bad is Landry Jones? If Roethlisberger, to his credit, played better in the fourth quarter. He certainly made some big throws there. Certainly wasn't helped out. The drop in the end zone on what was a great throw. But overall, the Ravens made him look really bad. And, when he had some chances to make some throws, he didn't make them. Not that there were a ton of opportunities. But, this Ravens defense played really well. And as I said to you in the press box in the fourth quarter, for as much of people have lamented the Ravens' luck with injuries and, losing so many close games, if it's a 100% healthy Ben Roethlisberger playing on Sunday, maybe that game's a little bit different. Who knows? But, the Ravens took advantage of the good fortune of clearly a quarterback that was off his game and not playing very well. And they forced him into some bad things and certainly made plenty of plays as well.
While we're on the defense, let's talk about C.J. Mosley a little bit, the difference with him flowing to the ball. 57 was all over the place, especially early in the game, sort of setting the tone. He hasn't played in a couple of weeks either. Sometimes we compare him to Ray Lewis, maybe fairly or unfairly, and certainly a different kind of defense, but different when he's out there. He was a difference maker in this particular football game.
Well, I believe it was Eric Weddle said it after the game that with Mosley, there's just kind of a calming influence there. He's not Ray Lewis, and all the comparisons to Ray Lewis are completely unfair. I mean, you're talking about, arguably the greatest inside linebacker in the history of the game. No question, one of the top 2 or 3 middle linebackers to ever play the game. I mean, there's no debating that. It's truth. So, to compare him to that is it's cruel, quite frankly. But that said, I mean, this kid made the Pro Bowl as a rookie, first Ravens player to be able to do that in his rookie season. And last year we talked about it. He had the wrist issue going back to the end of his rookie year. Really kind of impacted his ability to work out and be in top football shape for last year. And he struggled last year. I mean, his pass coverage wasn't very good. He was very average last year, but we've seen him once again look good in pass coverage. We mentioned a few minutes ago had a chance at an interception that he didn't come away with, but leads this team with 3 interceptions. And the middle of the field just wasn't quite as much of an issue. Now they had some issues. They got caught in some cover 2, and Mosley needed to get deeper on a drop in the fourth quarter on the one completion down the middle. But overall, just the middle of the field looked much more stable on Sunday than it did over the last couple of weeks when he was out. I mean, it's no knock on Zach Orr, no knock on Albert McClellan. I mean, those are nice players. Zach Orr's certainly been a nice story this year, no doubt about it.
Led the team in tackles again on Sunday, by the way.
Yeah, but he's more, and he'd probably be the first to tell you CJ's the guy there. Zach Orr is a really nice complimentary guy. Playing that weak side inside linebacker spot in the Ravens 3-4. But CJ is the guy who can play at a really high level. He's I don't know where he ranks right now among inside linebackers in the game, but to me he's clearly a top 5, top 10 kind of inside backer in the NFL right now. And it was clear having him back there. It made a big difference with controlling the middle of the field, not letting Le'Veon Bell go nuts as a receiver, and tight ends as well. It just it was noticeable the difference with him being back in there as opposed to how it looked the last couple of weeks for this Ravens defense.
The secondary, I thought for sure Jimmy Smith would be running around with Antonio Brown. There were many, many times Tavon Young was out there running around, and we don't notice Tavon Young, and I don't know if we've ever praised him around here. We've wondered what's going on the back end of the secondary. To your point, the defense doesn't play this well if the back end of the secondary isn't holding its water, and I know Ladarius Webb has been maligned at various points. Jimmy Smith's had all sorts of issues and injuries in and out, but when he's in there and he's playing well, he's as good as anybody. But this Tavon Young kid's come from nowhere.
Yeah, and to what you just said, I mean, Jimmy Smith is very quietly playing. I don't know if he's where he was before the foot injury.
He's as good as he ever was right now, though, right?
He's trending in that direction big time. I mean, this is the best we've seen him since the end of 2013 and the first half of 2014. I mean, he's done a really nice job. I wasn't shocked to see the Ravens stay with sides with their corners. We've seen Jimmy Smith travel with Antonio Brown in the past, but last year they did not do that. Both games they just played sides. Whether last year in Week 16 it was Sharice Wright on the opposite side, and earlier in the year I guess it was Webb on the opposite side of Smith. So they've mixed it up with Antonio Brown. So I wasn't shocked to see that, but you're absolutely right about Tavon Young. I've talked about him a good bit. I've written about him. And mentioned him, and certainly the Ravens took notice early on in the spring and summer. They saw that this was a kid who had ball skills. This was a kid who it wasn't too big for him. I mean,
kind of reminiscent of Ladarius early on, right? Ladarius kind of sort of came from nowhere.
Yeah, and he's actually a little smaller than Ladarius. I mean, Webb was a 3rd-round pick, and he didn't play a ton his rookie year defensively, but he played some. I don't think he played as much as what Tavon Young has played this year, and he's done a really nice job. I mean, his size makes you right away say, well, this is a slot corner. This is a nickel guy, right? In a perfect world, if the Ravens had Sharice Wright playing at the level he did in the second half of last year, which we just haven't seen that from him. I mean, obviously he's been hurt the last couple games, but hasn't played at a high level. But Young's held up on the outside, despite being 5'9". I mean, it's impressive to see him do what he's done as a rookie. And you mentioned Webb. Think of all the different corners that they've taken on day 3 over the last 5 years or so. Guys that weren't even close to being ready. certainly as a rookie, and guys who were never ready to be real players.
Yeah, I mean, the Shockey Browns and the Asa Jacksons and, all of those guys that they've tried, literally.
Yeah, guys that just haven't worked out. So it's been that huge for them that Tavon Young has played at the level he has. Now, you end up facing some teams that have 6'5" wide receivers, and not every team has that, but we know that those guys exist. Those are probably the situations where you say, yeah, Jimmy Smith needs to try. For example, I would think Jimmy Smith is going to need to travel against Des Bryant in a couple weeks. I mean, that's just Tavon Young's not going to be able to match up with a receiver that's 6'4".
And as we found out in the Meadowlands a couple weeks ago, when you put Odell Beckham on the wrong guy, you lose every battle. You lose every ball. And then it just becomes a matter, can you get to the quarterback and can you get some help over the top, right?
No doubt. But in these instances where, Antonio Brown is a smaller guy, I don't think Jimmy Smith, from a matchup standpoint, I'm not saying that he's at a disadvantage, but I don't think you necessarily utilize Jimmy Smith, with all the challenges that go with traveling with a receiver, because you got to account for zone coverage. Sometimes you become a little more predictable. Guys are playing spots that they're not used to playing from a leverage and alignment standpoint. So I think in a case where you do have an Antonio Brown, because he's a little bit smaller, maybe you go the route that the Ravens did, and it's hard to argue with the results. And certainly you can do safety help and things like that. But Tavon Young he looks like a guy who maybe hasn't been effective against the top receivers, but most corners in the league, that's the story with them. So he's someone who's proven that he can hold his own and he can make some plays there. So he has been easily one of their most pleasant surprises this year. And, when you consider that Stanley's missed so much time, Kamale Correa has played very, very little defensively. Kafusi out for the year, broke his ankle back in training camp. Tavon Young has been as effective, as good as any of their draft picks this year. And, he's a big reason why that defense has been able to play as well as it has, even though they haven't gotten any kind of consistent play from Therese Wright or some of their other corners, not named Jimmy Smith.
He is Luke Jones. You can find him, Baltimore Luke, out on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. We're getting ready for the Browns on Thursday. Of course, anything you miss, you can find out in the bio. Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. And last but never least, any breaking news is going to happen this week on the WNST Tech Service. I'm sure the Orioles getting a pitching coach together, as well as a short-term injury report for Thursday night's game against the woeful Cleveland Browns. We'll get to that. Our tech service is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Speaking of Thursday, Dennis will be driving you home from 3 until 5, getting you ready for the Ravens game on Thursday night. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. You'll want to check out all of our social media this week, as my wife's hero and donor, Niels, is in town. He was at the game. Good luck charm. 1-0 with Niels in the house. We'll hope to make that 2-0 on Thursday night with the Cleveland Browns as well. We're at Buffalo Wild Wings on Monday night, every Monday night in Owings Mills for the best seat in the house competition, as well as our Blazing Wing Eating Challenge, all brought to you by Fully Loaded Transportation, as well as our friends at Buffalo Wild Wings in Owings Mills. He's Luke. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.